Yeah.
Positive?
Yeah, just let me know when you start the time, so I'm going to have my own timer up here.
Oh, you.
I'm pretty close to my time, so I
Let
said,
go.
okay. All right, so I titled my project The Construction of Music. Now, how do you construct music? Well, you're about to find out. So in the beginning of junior year, we got junior experience. I wanted to do a project that had to do with something related to sound and or music. But I had to make it relate to STEM, so that this presentation right here would be so much easier. So I started with an internship. I wanted to do, at first, sound engineering, which is pretty much just setting up mics and adjusting audio levels before a band plays at a bar. But I thought that would just get really repetitive to do the same thing over and over again. So I decided I didn't want to do that. So then I went with repairing instruments. I knew a guy in Kent, and I contacted him, and he repairs instruments, and he puts new pieces in instruments. And I thought that would be a great thing to do every single day because it'd always be changing. So I emailed him before we went on summer break, and he said, all right, sounds good, email me when you get back to school. So then I went on summer break. So then I called him the second day we got back, and he said, oh, I'm just not set up for that, let me call you back when I am. Haven't gotten a call yet. So I figured I would just rethink my research project because I still liked the idea, but I wanted to do it in an internship sort of way. I wanted to do my internship in a research project sort of way. So I wanted to still apply to music, and I really liked the building instruments, repairing them, replacing parts. So then I decided what I was going to do was I was just going to build my own instrument because it would have all of those things in it, and I'd still be able to do it. So then I had to go through my approval process like we all did, write that full page out. I pretty much had to market my project. And actually not too long, day and a half, I got it approved. So then I started my research. I had stipulations in my research, like the 360 hours that we all had to do by the end of the year, and the weekly bloggers. So after I figured out my stipulations and how I was going to work around that, I started my research, and I started it with anatomy of guitar is what I called it, which was pretty much all the different parts and pieces that make it work. That's like woods, pickups, necks, bridges, all of which I'll explain later, and also the design of the body, how it fits to your own body, and how to make it comfortable while you're playing on stage. So anatomy of guitars was the body, woods, and finishes. Those type of things affect anything from the tone of the guitar, the sustain and resonance, as well as the appearance, because though that may not seem important, the instrument kind of represents you while you're playing it, so you kind of want it to, match anything that you're doing. Pickups, they also affect the sound of the guitar. They pretty much are the sound of the guitar. The pickups are what takes the sound out and puts it out to everybody listening. It goes through the amp, through that, and then goes out. Then there's the neck woods and finishes, which are pretty much the same as the body woods and finishes. They affect about the same things, but there's different types of those. And then the bridges. The bridges are pretty much what holds the strings into the guitar, and that might be the most important thing when building a guitar, because there are so many different types of bridges and they can affect so many different things. So with body woods and finishes, I'm going to pass around this right here just so you can see what the inside of the guitar body looks like and the kind of finish on it. That also has a bridge enhancer, which we'll get to a little bit. There are two main types of body woods. They're swamp ash and alder. Swamp ash is found in swamps, and it's very porous, which can do really well for sustain and resonance. Sustain is how long a note goes on for, and resonance is how loud it is at the beginning of the pick. It's also very porous, and it's a heavy wood, so that's where the sustain and resonance come in. And it has a lot of grains, which doesn't affect the sound, but it's great for appearance. And then there's alder, which is a very dry wood. It's found up north, not very porous, so it's all right with sustain and resonance. And then it is also not very grainy, which is kind of boring. Usually you paint a not really grainy guitar just because there's nothing to really show off. And then there's finishes, which are gloss and satin. Gloss will look glossy. It'll kind of have a shine to it and light. And then satin, it looks like sort of matte almost, and it's a lot smoother. And the type of thickness that you put on the polyurethane will change how the guitar sounds. If you have a lot of finish on it, it'll sound almost a little bit plasticky. Right, okay. Then there are the pickups, which I'm going to pass this around. So the guards with the pickups in it, these three things. On the back are all the wires. There you go. There are two main types of pickup. There's a single coil pickup, which is pretty much just one magnet with one coil going all the way around it. The downside of that, or upside, depending on who you ask, is you get the 60 cycle hum, which is pretty much interference from outside electronics. And whenever you're not playing a note, you're just going to hear this loud kind of sound come out of it. So some people like that. They kind of make it into a vintage sound almost is what they call it. But I have never been one for that, so you know, it's a bad thing for me. Then there's double coils, which are pretty much the same thing, except there's two of them. And they can either be stacked on top of each other or right next to each other. They have a more full sound out of them because there's two coils. The single coils have a thinner sound because there is just one coil. And there's also no 60 cycle hum because there's the two coils going around, and there's extra shielding on that. So they're called humbuckers because they pretty much buck the 60 cycle hum. And there's terminology such as output, which is how distorted a sound will be at any effect or any moment that it's played. So if you have like this really kind of metal sound out of it, it's going to be amplified even more with a high output. And then there's DC resistance, which is the number of coils that are around the magnet, which can affect the temperature of the pickups, which in turn affects the output. Then there's neck woods in finishes. Here's the guitar neck with the tuners on it. I'll pass that around as well. Neck woods and finishes are pretty much the same type of different things as body woods and finishes, with just a little bit extra. The neck, there are two main types of neck woods, really. There's maple and there's rosewood. Maple will give you a brighter tone almost, you'll get more treble and mid notes, and it's also a lighter color for appearance. Then there's rosewood, which is a darker tone, and you're going to get more bass and mid-range notes as opposed to treble. And it's a dark brown color. Pretty much the rule with thinking of tones and body woods is the darker the wood, the deeper or kind of lower the tone will be, and the brighter the sound. And then finishes is a bigger thing on necks because of playability. If you have a gloss finish and you're one of those big sweaty guitar players, your hand will stick to the gloss finish while you're trying to play the different notes, so you might not be able to get to them as fast. So in that case, you might want a satin, but I am dry, so I didn't have a problem with that. Then there's bridges. This is an example of bridge, little springs, pegs. I'll pass that around. I remember using it. There are three main types of bridges. There's a fixed hardtail bridge, which is what that one looks like. It's screwed right into the body. I have that one on my guitar. And it goes directly, the strings go all the way through the body of the guitar. And this is actually screwed into the body itself, as opposed to being floating. And then there's a tremolo bridge, which is actually on wherever that black body went to, I don't know. It's on the black body guitar. You can see it. It's got, see if you hold that up. See that bar coming off it? That's a trem bar. If you press that down, it'll change the resistance on the strings, which will give you a sort of wavy tone. But it's also bad for tuning, because changing that resistance will change the tuning. So you'll have to retune every time you use it. And I never use it, so I didn't want one of those. And then there's a tune-o-matic bridge, which is the patented name for it, which is on this guitar. It pretty much just rises above the guitar itself, and the strings lock right into here, as opposed to going through the body, even though some do have it go through the body. That one is screwed into the actual guitar, so there's no tuning issues, and good sustain, as in with the fixed bridge and the tune-o-matic. Then there is the miscellaneous parts and materials, which is things from the tuners. These right here, you can see those on that neck. The nut, which is this little plastic piece right here, it keeps the tension between the end of the neck and the actual tuners itself. The tuners are used to change the tone of the guitar. The string trees, which I have right here, those keep the tension between the nut and the tuners as opposed to the end of the neck of the tuners. You don't need them, but I just figured I'd be cautious. And then the pick guard, which is being passed around, it's a white piece of plastic, looks like this. That holds all of the pickups and electronics. If you flip it over, you'll see all of that. It's got switches, volume knobs, tone knobs. You can raise and lower the pickups depending on So guitar designs. There are really two main guitar designs that I was going with. It was either this one, which is called the Les Paul, or this one, which is the Fender Stratocaster. I chose this one because of the fret availability, the versatility of it. Because right here, there's two cutouts, so you can actually get to the 21 and 22nd fret right here. Whereas on this one, it's a little bit harder, and there's no cutout on the back. So if you want to reach this way, which some people do, you won't be able to. Also with this is arm placement. If you look on this guitar, it has a big slant right here, which is really comfortable for arm placement. Whereas this one is just a flat hunk of wood, which some people like, but nobody really does. And then there's body placement. On the back of the guitar is this big cutout. This one is specific to me because I just figured if I was making a guitar, why not have it specific to me? This fits perfectly into my body because I sanded it down. Whereas on the back of the Les Paul, it's completely flat, which kind of hurts your bones. So designing my guitar, like I said, I used the Stratocaster design because of the versatility of getting to the notes. And it also allows for swapping in pieces. In this guitar, the neck is screwed on, whereas in this one, it's glued on. So this neck is on forever. This one, I can change it however many times I want. So when I started designing, I wanted to do CAD designs. So I started with CAD. I wanted to take a Stratocaster, download it onto that file, and start editing it to my specific specs. But there was a large learning curve. So that got sort of worked out. So then I started using Google SketchUp, which I actually just grew it and then changed it from there. I had experience using SketchUp before, and it was also easier to save the file, which in this sense is STL. CAD designs, I tried to download a pre-made design and change it. Didn't work because downloaded designs on CAD are non-editable. My design is close to the actual Stratocaster design, but it's a little different. And the program had a lot of problems with it, so I couldn't even do that. First of all, I wasn't able to save my work. So if I wanted to design a guitar, it was all in one sitting. I only had a free trial, so I only had it for like 30 days. And then as well, there was a large learning curve. They had entire college classes devoted to CAD, and I couldn't do all that. So then I went with Google SketchUp. I was able to just draw the shape of my guitar and then zoom in and refine it, and intrude pickup slots, neck slots, and bridge slots, and just put that in there. I wasn't just drawing it. It was so much easier. Bless you. And then I had to change the design from a tremolo to the fixed bridge because I decided halfway through I didn't want the tremolo. So in Google SketchUp, I just extruded it back out, whereas in CAD, I would have to start all over. Then the refining edges on Google SketchUp was a lot easier because they can just lower this right here and just bring it all down. Then I used MakerBot printing. I did 3D models. This helped me see the small scale of the guitar, and I got to feel around and see what I thought of it, whether or not I liked it. It was easier to see problems and make adjustments if I thought I needed to. It was also easier to show people different parts of my project. Some people don't know what a Stratocaster design is, so I went ahead and showed them. It was also easier to see and hold the physical version because it was just easier to understand. And I just got to see what my final product would look like halfway through the year, which was rather inspiring to continue working on. Then I started with my Shopbot print, which was done by a fellow student in here, Ben Gerhardt. He helped me set up the file and helped me run it. So pretty much the STL file was converted to the Shopbot program. The computer calculated how to cut it out. The cutting process is pretty much two separated cuts. There's the initial cut, which looks all pixelated. It's kind of like stepping stairs. And then there's the general cut, which will just, or not the general cut, the final cut, which will pretty much just finish off all the rounded edges. The first cut takes about an hour because it's just quick, just stairs, just going. The second cut takes about an hour and a half, maybe 2 hours. So my Shopbot print number 1 I did on this insulation board. Like I said, Ben helped me cut it out. You guys could see this if you'd like. So then you can see right here is the initial cut, which has these pixelated stepping stairs where that slant is. And then the final cut, here's it halfway through the final cut. You can see that it cut out the pre-did slots. And that is the finished product of that one, which we will see coming around. That print, by the way, took about 3 hours total. So then my Shopbot print number 2. After 3 hours of printing, the printing bit broke, which means that project was done. I could not restart from where I was at, and that model was just done. I spent 4 hours the next day sanding it. And so it was finished right at this edge here. It stopped right there in the final cut. So that edge was about maybe 1/4 of an inch off of the actual body. And if you look inside here, there's a big slant right here because I didn't bother sanding in here. This is where I couldn't sand, so that's how much I sand to sand off. And then also, this is where I practiced all of my stains and glosses. So you can see that process there. That's good. Stain polyurethane, my stain. Doesn't really matter, but I figured I'd tell you. The Varathane weathered gray, did 3 coats of that. Then I did Minwax Classic Black with a little bit of gloss polyurethane in it. Had 2 coats. I'd be a little more careful with that one because, like I said, polyurethane does change the sound of the guitar. So for the polyurethane itself, I did a Minwax wipe-on poly because wipe-on is easier to control as opposed to a spray or a brush-on. So the first coat, I did a full-strength polyurethane. Actually, polyurethane this, by the way, I hung it from my ceiling so that I wouldn't get any fingerprints on it and that any drips would not go on other parts of the guitar. So the first coat, full-strength polyurethane, I let that dry a day, sanded it with 800 grit sandpaper. Second coat, did 80% polyurethane and 20% mineral spirits, because like I said, if you get too much polyurethane on it, it's going to get plastic sounding, and I kind of wanted to keep the natural sound out of it. Attaching parts, probably the hardest part, because like I said, these parts are not made to go together, so I made them go together. The tuners, they're Fender tuners, so they had 2 pegs on the back right here, which usually there's just a screw, so I had to drill those parts. The neck pocket is the back plate, 4 different screws, pre-drilled that, went right into the neck. Then the output jack, which is this right here, just 2 screws and then poke the wire coming out through a hole underneath. And then the wired pick guard, I had to do 11 screws all around here, which actually that was probably the easiest part. And then I attached those to the output jack. And the bridge was probably the hardest one because you got to be perfect with it, or else the strings will slip off the neck. So in that one, I was a little slower, but it was only 3 screws. Finished product guitar overview. So my body is made of swamp ash because I wanted that brighter tone, longer sustain, and more resonance. My neck is maple, again, because I like that brighter tone. My bridge is a fixed bridge, so no tuning problems, but that also means no tremolo bar. Then my pickups, this doesn't really mean much, it's just the terminology. This is the Pro Track Fast Track 1, Fast Track 2, which pretty much to you guys is just the output goes from least to greatest. So my effects will go from least to greatest. And that way I get a good versatility of everything because I can combine pickups with this switch in order to get any sound that I want. And then my tuners are they're Fender stagger tuners, which just means these 2 are higher than these ones for pretty much tension purposes. My stem connection. So specifically in science, I use the sounds and the tones and how different sounds and tones travel through different materials. We learned that last year with Mr. Pandey about sound traveling through water and waves and how it would be slower going through dense materials and whatnot. So I had to think about what kind of materials I wanted out of that. My technology was designing the guitar using CAD, Google SketchUp, and then also the technology like MakerBot and Shopbot. And then engineering, I used the design process and also the tools in the engineering lab, which were spot on. And then math was the measurements used to design the body and also budgeting for the guitar. At the time I was budgeting, I planned on paying for all of it, but actually half of the cost was on my mother. Thank you. Just a plug there. I'll keep that in mind. And then my connection to Biomet itself. The attributes helped me tremendously throughout this project. Sense of community might have been one of my biggest ones because online there's just a community of guitar builders and forums. I would put my questions in there. Literally within minutes they would be answered because people don't want to see other people go through the problems that they had, especially in guitar building, because they know the frustration out of it. Personal agency throughout the project, as probably all of you know, because you got to keep yourself on track with those deadlines. Collaborative, like I said, with those projects, or the forums. People were helping me answer things. Innovative, problem solver. All of those went into that when I was designing parts, fitting them together, trying to make everything work. Let's take that back. Classroom knowledge, applications. I had every class that I think I probably had here, I used about one thing from. Because without my background knowledge, I would never have been able to complete that project. Because there was a lot of different varying things that went into it, which I was surprised with. But in the end, it worked out overall. And then also the staff and student support. Whenever I was working on this in the engineering lab or the commons or wherever I was on the floor, even not on the floor, in the atrium, people would come up to me and ask me questions about it. And they would ask me why I was doing this and why I was doing that. And it was great to just bounce ideas off of them. And also building the guitar and getting to know the different parts and pieces of it were definitely a thing that a particular staff member, Mr. Martell, helped me with because he does build guitars. So he helped me solder things on and led me to different sites to get cheaper materials and so forth. If I did my project again, something I would really work on is my precision. I felt a little rushed throughout the project sometimes, so I wasn't as careful as I could have been, which led to a couple of imperfections in the guitar. None that matter, but they could have if I messed up too badly. Looking for different types of materials, not that that matters too much, but I could have gone into maybe like more exotic woods just to play around with the tones I could get out of it. And then talk with more people that already built guitars so they could pretty much tell me what I was going to mess up. And then what I would do the same is 3D modeling and the designing, because I got to see that model and I got to look at it and show people and be excited about it and get new ideas and see what they thought of it. The appearance, I actually love the appearance of my guitar. I was really bothered by it for a little while, and then I changed my stain, and now I love it. It's great. The tools and techniques pretty much can't change much. The tools are average tools, drill, everything you could find in the engineering lab, anything I could buy cheap. Techniques, I think I actually used the techniques that I should have been for building it, which I didn't find out till the end, but it's really good. Yeah. And then my timing. I allowed myself a good long while, just in case I ran into some problems towards the end. So last week, I was supposed to finish it like Tuesday. Bridge didn't fit, strings weren't aligned, tuners were crooked, knobs weren't fixed, I had wires missing, and I had this whole week to finish it. Finished my guitar yesterday, played for 3 hours. My experience, what I'm most proud of is the actual guitar that I built, doing most of it myself with the help of others and money from my mother. And everything that I learned about myself and about the project specifically. Easiest part was selecting materials after I already knew what I had researched, because I knew what sound I wanted out of it and I knew what would give me that. The hardest part was probably the installation, because not everything fit, so I had to make that work, which was a problem, but I worked through it. And then my experience continued. I had to learn, what I learned about the instruments was the complexity. Minor changes can affect more than you can even imagine. And then that no instrument is perfect. My instrument is definitely not perfect, but if I were to try and buy that guitar, it'd be $1,200. I'd probably spent about $5. And then what I learned about myself was my ability to design, the effectiveness of enjoying my project. I had to stand for 4 hours, loved every second of it because I knew what my end goal was. And my ability to problem solve, like fit everything together. What had the most impact on me specifically was the complexity of building an instrument and all the changes that had to be made, and then also the support that went along with that through people helping me in the online forums and what have you. What I take away is the knowledge that of everything I learned about guitars and the project itself. I can build more guitars now, and they'll probably turn out better. Everything that I learned about myself and my ability to fix things and problem solve and make things fit together. And then the memories, I do have a tangible object now that represents all that I've worked towards at Biomed, and also that represents my struggles and triumphs throughout the 4 years here. And also represents what Biomed has allowed me to do. In no other school would I be able to build a guitar for my senior year, but here I got to do that. So thank you very much, and if you have any questions, I'd be happy to answer. You have a question?
Yes.
Yeah.
You talked about imperfections. What's one of the imperfections on it? And you said that none of them mattered. How could one of those imperfections have mattered? How could it have become a big deal?
So the main imperfection, just bug me to this very second, is this right here. You can't see it, but I can. It's a neck pocket gap. The neck here, the neck pocket was sanded out a little more than it needed to be, and the edges were rounded out. So this gap here could maybe fit a guitar pick, but not a credit card. And that affects literally nothing. But just knowing that there's a gap there bugs me every day. And there, you can buy guitars more expensive than this that will have a bigger gap than that. There's a big debate actually whether or not the gap affects anything because I was researching it because I was scared. And it actually turns out it doesn't affect anything. It's a bolt-on neck. It's made to be like that. That's fine, but just no. Yes, Gary.
You mentioned that you didn't like your gloss before. What was it that you didn't like about it, and what did you do to change that?
It wasn't my gloss. It was the stains that I had on it. I had that 3 coats of Verathane weathered gray. And the weathered gray, I really wanted to get a dark gray out of it. But I ended up getting a light sky blue out of Verathane weathered gray. And I just pretty much told people, no, I love it, it's fine, it'll look better. Even though people were like, no, that's definitely light blue. So I ended up just going, all right, fine, whatever. So I got a classic black made by Minwax, and it had a little bit of polyurethane in it. And I put one coat on it, and I was like, this is what I want. And then I put another coat on it, and it turned out looking like that, and that was exciting. Yes? I think I didn't have time for that, and there's no amp here. So, but if you would ever like to hear it, please let me know, and I'd be happy to show up. Not
your
really.
last morning meeting.
My last morning meeting, that'd be great. Yeah, I'll see.
We next Monday.
Next, don't we have? Oh no, we have presentations that we're still going to be there.
So you'll be there.
I'll work on it. I'll talk to them.
You play in the middle. It will be in home.
That sounds good. Get a couple people going.
Mr. Willard's in charge of the Energizer, and he said that would be wonderful to do that for him.
Nice, nice, nice. I'm gonna put my case out too, like my mom said, get some money to reimburse her on the guitar parts. Hey. Yes.
Are you going to come up with your own branding?
You know, I actually hadn't thought about that, but now that you mention it. I did say that that'd be a good one, right across the entire neck of my guitar. Yeah, no, I could maybe. I don't know if I'm able to I don't actually know if I'd be able to let go of guitar that I built. Because throughout this guitar, there's so many different things that are specific to my guitar that you would never find anywhere else, and I feel bad knowing that somebody else has something like this.
Think of it as a child, Sean. You build it, give it a go, and you
No, I don't want that. Any other questions that don't involve code? No? Okay, Kelly, do you have one?
What are your plans for the future?
My plans for the future, I'm going to Kent State to do education because I'm going to get a job here, right? That's what I hear. All right, you all heard it, all my witnesses.
It's recorded too.
Yeah, it's reported too. Yeah, I got you on video now saying it. I look forward to it.
I would say it probably when I interview you, unless you all of a sudden turn into something different, then we might have problems.
I hope not. College should be good to me. Maybe.
Right, so if we keep going the way you're going, I highly
I look forward to it. Is that it?
Good job, though.
Right. Thank you.
Alright, for next steps, we're gonna have the other class is gonna come in here again. What I need from you though, collect the crayons and give them back to CJ, she has a box. Collect the papers and then give them to whoever wants them or take them home, whatever. And I need your half sheets, I'm gonna collect those for you now. And then if you can make a pile of blank ones, that would be fantastic.
That's like what I want.